Alrighty, we are live. Oop, noises. Turn that off. Okie dokie. Cool. Seems to be working. I've been messing a lot with OBS, trying to tweak things, fine tune things so it works a little bit better while I'm using this mobile setup. Yeah, we are live, Johnny Five. Hey, Shambasta, how you doing, bud? So yeah, if you haven't watched the streams lately or checked out the videos on the YouTube, first of all, I apologize for my bandwidth issues. The reason my screen is blurred behind me is because I'm in a hotel right now. I'm on active duty orders down in San Antonio, Texas. I've got 6 more weeks left on this course and potentially another 4 week course up in Alabama after that. Or is it Arkansas? I always get them confused. Hmm. But yeah, was just on the Facebook Messenger chatting with my family back in Idaho. My sister-in-law and her family are visiting, and her son is only a few months older than my son. So it's the first time that they've been able to get together in quite some time. So we're just due to kids always being sick. So I've been catching up with them. But yeah, so tonight on the stream we are doing lore equals gameplay, episode 11. And we're going to be checking out the March Galactapedia update like we usually do, and using the Ark Starmap to guide the exploration of that update, at least as far as the star map location related articles go. Before we get into that, just want to do a quick recap on the channel and the content. If you missed the stream on Saturday, we did Armchair Admirals and Generals episode 5 with Atira Kell and Nightcob, and we talked about the thrill of the hunt was the title of the episode, and we first section was talking about how to sort of stay hidden, especially for pirates, or if you're moving your way through a star system and you're trying to avoid detection, how you might move through the system, how you might manage your emissions, the signals, and all that you're putting off. How you might use what we were calling terrain in space to help mask your signatures. Things like asteroid fields, planets, moons, nebula and gas clouds, all of that sort of stuff. And then the second section, we talked about intel gathering and what you might be able to do in Star Citizen related to gathering intel in terms of planning an operation in order to be more successful, because things are going to get more complicated going forward, especially as we get systems like Pyro and Nyx into the game. Ghost 1800, good to see you. How are you? Still want to see space terrain? Here we'll have it. Yeah, it's going to be. I'm so like with Pyro, they have the Akiro cluster, which is an asteroid field, not a belt, and then you're also going to have the issues with the radiation from the star, complicating things. A lot of moons, and then we have for each planet there's 5 Lagrange points. Well, there's 6 planets in Pyro versus the 4 in Stanton, so you've got 10 more Lagrange points. So we're likely to have gas clouds around those areas, as well as some asteroid fields. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then Nyx is really huge when it comes to the space terrain, with 2 asteroid belts, one of them having basically a nebula wrapped around it, running through it the whole way around the system. So that's going to be really interesting. North End Trooper '07, good to see you. Yeah, yeah, I put on a different shirt this time. Oh my gosh, I got back from class today. It's been like 90, it was low 90s today, but so humid. And being from Idaho, where it's northern high desert, yeah, it's snowing back in Idaho. At least, yeah, my family all said it was really cold. And meanwhile, I was just dripping in sweat and sticky because I'm not used to it. Oh, okay, sweet. The automatic part's working. Um, so I got the chat commands working for the Stack Up Charity Drive. So that should go off. I think it's every 3 or 5 minutes. I'll have to play around with the timing, but I've got it set on a timer. I played with MooBot. So you see those in chat. But yeah, the podcast was a lot of fun. We had a really good time talking about stuff. The entirety of the episode will be up on my YouTube on the 5th at, it'll be 2 p.m. Eastern, so 1 p.m. Central, like 11 Pacific, I think that is. And then, it's every other day. So like on the 7th, you'll have the section, the first section, and then the 9th will be the second section. And so the other thing is, we got rated by Paul during the stream, which I may have inadvertently kind of planned it that way, starting the stream, scheduling the stream that way. So that way we would be getting going when Paul is finishing up with Captain's Table, and it worked out great. Big shout out to Paul, the Astropub, Shelley, for the raid. Brought in a ton of viewers. The chat was, the stream alerts were going absolutely nuts with new followers, and then we also got a bunch of quite a few donations. So it was really awesome. Getting a bunch of new followers and people hanging out in chat. It was a lot of, the most participation we've ever seen, on any of the shows. Even at the end of the podcast, we still had like 70 people hanging out and talking. And so it was a lot of fun hanging out with everybody. Good to see new faces and old. But then we also raised a bunch of money. I did the math. Yeah, part of the crew, part of the show. It was going nuts. I still haven't figured out how to turn that off in a hurry. So yeah, I still have to do my homework on that. But we raised over, not so with direct donations, and then the direct donations via the chat link, as well as the charity thing on Twitch. I think we did $250 for a stack up, and that's not including, I think we got three new subs, maybe 4 new subs. So yeah, just the stream was a lot of fun, and so that's a big win. Always success. A success for me in my book is when we're all having fun and chatting. But the fact that we raised that much money for Stack Up, and we are well over halfway to the goal of $1,000, so we can sponsor a supply crate as a community for Stack Up. The thing at the top of the chat isn't accurate because that is reflecting some of the money that came in starting October through December of 2022. But that's, if you do the math of the other donations and stuff, we're probably pushing, we're between $500 and $600 all total, I think, especially if we count in the next payout I'll be getting from Twitch probably in the next several weeks. So I cannot thank you guys as a community enough for joining me in this venture, supporting stackup.org, learning more about Star Citizen, having fun, and coming together as a community, with myself and Nazarus and Night Cobb and Atirakel. It's been a lot of fun. We're also, for the next episode of Armchair Admirals and Generals, we're planning tentatively for the first weekend of May. I forget what the dates are. It'll be either be Saturday or Sunday probably. And depending on who's available, we'll either we're planning on we're going to have a new face as part of the retinue, and it will either be Kale Katarn or Badgers from Inforunners. He was hanging out in a part of chat, and we invited him, and he said he was all about it. He would love to. So we'll just see scheduling wise how it works out. I did reach out to Sergeant Tickles. He is interested. He wants to learn more, and so I'll be chatting more with him to see if we can get him on in the future. He's a Twitch partner, Air Force veteran, deployed to Afghanistan. I watched some of his VODs. He's a very entertaining guy. He definitely would be a good addition to the mix. So hopefully we can get him into the rotation, and we'll have 3 of us at a minimum, hopefully 4 going forward, and keep things interesting and liven things up, add some more perspective.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Oh, my GIF is too small. Okay, I gotta fix that. Give me 1 second. I'm just adjusting that. There we go. Now it'll look right the next time that comes on. It got cut off. Bingo Winchester, thank you so much for the follow, 07. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us this evening. But yeah, that's it for the channel recap. So let's get into the lore and check out the Galactapedia update for the month of March, and we'll take a look at the star map along with it. I did have to reload the star map several times, getting everything set up. It seems to be working right now. Hopefully that will continue to be the case.
Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Another follow.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
That's awesome. Another follow. Johnny Long Torso. What a name. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Appreciate the follow and the support. I know, I just have too much fun with that thing. We definitely didn't plan on getting like 30 new follows in the span of 2 or 3 minutes the other night. So yeah, let's go ahead and I need to go to studio mode so I can transition. Let me just make sure that everything looks like it's still working appropriately. Cool. All right, we're going to transition to the other window with the screen in 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's weird. My audio for my transition was... Oh. Okay, there we go. Strange. All right, seems to be working. Cool. Let's see. And let's turn off the studio mode and switch windows to this one. And here we are. All right, everything seems to be looking good. So what I'm doing is I have my tablet over here on my left so that I can continue to watch chat and monitor you yahoos. And then, but then I have the Galactapedia update article in front of me as well as the Ark Starmap. And we're still working. It's a little slow because this computer is not the fastest thing alive, that's for sure. But it seems to be functioning. Hopefully it'll let me like click into and out of things. Rock and stone. So speaking of that, it was last Wednesday and the Friday before that I did Paul's new thing he's doing with Loken called Pub Plays, and we played Deep Rock Galactic. Just had an absolutely phenomenal time. It was just a riot. Loken is so much fun. I forget who the other people that joined us from Loken's Discord were, but yeah, it was a really good time. They're planning on playing oh gosh, what's it called? Barotrauma this Wednesday. I might be able to join them. We'll see. But if you're available, go ahead and check them out that evening. Maybe I'll be on as well. So we'll see. So the Galactapedia update for March 2023. This came out on like the 28th or the 30th or whatever it is. In tradition with what we do on this channel, Nazareth is very big in reading the entirety of a post for context, and I think it's a good best practice. These posts come as if they're being broadcast from the Ark, which is the repository station in the TAAC system that is meant to be like the hub and storage for all galactic knowledge, whether human, Xi'an, Banu, Tavar, and the whole shebang. So welcome to this month's Galactapedia Update Roundup. This month we visit the Dying Tyrol system and the Thriving Genesis system, get to know General Neil Sokolovich, check out the Perseus, so many people's favorite ship, and learn about the history of secondary education in the UEE. Join the Spectrum thread for any discussion or feedback. And so the full-length article this month is about equivalency, equivalent to a secondary education. And so we'll read that here in a second. And as I posted about it in my Discord, as well as on Twitter, but the tie roll system is actually my favorite system. And I think you're going to understand why once we get into reading about it. But let's take a look at this equivalency article. We'll read through it, and then we'll move on to the shorter articles. So the interesting thing is whenever they do these longer form articles, there's always a lot of very interesting information within these. Some of it is very relevant to what we will be experiencing in the game, and other ones like this one, just at first glance, I'm like, okay, how are they going to make this relevant to what we're experiencing as players? So let's get into it. Equivalency. An equivalency is a certification awarded to people in the UEE upon completion of their secondary education. It can be earned through the completion of an upper or full secondary UEE certified education program, or through passing a group of subject tests issued by the UEE government. So this sounds very much like going through high school or taking your or getting your oh gosh, what's it called? The high school equivalency test that we have here in the U.S. I don't know. I'm assuming there are similar things in other countries, but I'm not aware of them. Oh, okay, cool. It seems to be working. Real quick, just to make sure one thing. Yep, mic's working. Okay, cool. As outlined by the common laws. So common law in the UEE, University of Phoenix. Common law in the UEE is law it's kind of like federal law in the US, and I apologize, I can't speak to things in other countries if that's where you're from. But we have federal law, which is these are laws that apply in all states, and are enforced in all states essentially. So common law in the UEE is kind of like federal law in the US, where regardless of what's UE system you're in, these are common laws that are shared by all UE systems. And yes, that does include Stanton, even though the planets and the planetary systems within them are owned by the corporations, like Crusader and such. The Stanton still falls within the UEE and is subject to UEE common law. As outlined by the common laws, all people born in the UEE have the right to an education. Between ages 13 to 14, the majority of students in the UEE begin their secondary education, like high school, at public schools overseen by teachers employed by a planet's governor's council. So it sounds like, prior to secondary school, a lot of schooling may not be public in nature. It might be a mix of public and private. Or it might be, if they're public schools, they might be a smaller governmental body. So the planet's governor's council. The governor's council is the council of all, because on a planet you can have multiple nations or nation states. It isn't all the planets aren't just part of the UE with a senator. The planets have their own. Many planets have their own nations. Just like we do, currently on Earth, with the varying nations having governors, that represent them at the governor's council, as well as having a senator that's elected, or senators that are elected to represent the entire planet to the UEE. So classroom size and teaching style vary from planet to planet, but all students are required to complete a standardized exam that has been standardized according to UEE educational requirements. Most students are awarded their equivalency between ages 17 and 18, so normal graduation age for high school in the US. People in the UEE who don't have access to planet or colony provided secondary education are able to complete their secondary education programs through the same educational programs that are provided to public school students via glass or computer system. Okay, so if you are on a colony or a planet that has limited technology, maybe doesn't have UE representation, that sort of thing, you can still essentially do your secondary education, do the online version. Yeah, ITT Tech for Nine Tails. Oh my god. But yeah, Bingo Winchester says University of Phoenix, ITT Tech for Nine Tails. Yeah, it's basically you're going to school online. Kind of like if you live someplace ultra rural, nowadays where there aren't schools for you to go to, you can still use the internet to get an education. And then take complete standardized testing for validation of that education. Rural students often complete their education through spectrum guided learning programs. Without a teacher to set the pace, provide lectures, or to address questions, self guided students are free to achieve equivalency whenever they have completed their program. So that's interesting. It makes you wonder how this will play into maybe the backstory of certain individuals and characters within the Star Citizen lore, or what that will, how that will impact things like employment law, and whether, okay, you've completed your equivalency at an early age because you were self-paced, living on a rural colony. Does that mean, okay, you've graduated, now you're done with school and you can go to work at a younger age, whether you're on the family farm or the family business, or running a family station? Information technology tales. Yeah. Private and military academies also offer courses in secondary education. The teacher to student ratio in these academies is generally smaller than that of public schools, and the education is more personalized. However, these courses are not government provided. All students must pay tuition.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Okay. So Night Cop, thank you for joining me. Good to see you, buddy. I know it's only been a couple days, but always good to see you. Oh, it did it again. And Night Cop, thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate it. I got to fix that really quick, otherwise it's going to drive me nuts. So goal, unlock. Nope, wrong one. Sound alerts. I don't know why I had that resized. I like that little GIF. It's fun. I like it. I want to see it on the screen, but for some reason, whoops, I had it resized and it got cut off, and we can't have that. No, not at all. There we go. That's better. That'll do, pig. That'll do. All righty. You're welcome for me being annoying. I interrupted you on purpose with sound alerts. Hey, you know what? You can interrupt me all you want, as long as we're supporting stackup.org. But yeah, I still, Nightcob, I still haven't figured out how to turn off the sound alerts in a hurry. So if I ever get myself in a pickle again, we're just up a creek still. We're just gonna have to deal with it and listen to my fun sound alerts. What we do need to do is we need to there's the sound alerts tab thing on Twitch, where you can use the bits to also play sound alerts. So that's another way to support stackup.org, because that money also goes to I also donate that to stackup.org. And then the crayons, my little chat currency thing, you can also spend those. And right now it's only 1,000 to play the sound alerts. And so if anyone has 1,000 and you want to give that a try, and that way we can test it out, it'd be great. So we shall see. So let's see. Actually, I think I can do it. Here, let's I'm clicking on it. Or maybe I can't do it because I am the person. I don't know. Anyway, history. So during the human colonial expansion era, 2380 to 2530, secondary education was required by law for all children born within the United Nations of Earth. As more planets were discovered and colonized, the law became difficult to enforce. Children born to the first settlers of early colony worlds who could not be sent back to more developed parts of the UEE for their education were homeschooled, if they were schooled at all. To address this gap in education in 2464, the UNE released a standardized set of computer-based learning modules, pardon me, called the Education Equivalency Curriculum. These modules replaced in-person education on worlds where teachers and schools were not yet available. Those who successfully completed the program were awarded an educational equivalency degree, or equivalency. Why does it do that? Where was I? Were awarded an educational equivalency degree, or equivalency, which certified that the holder had completed all secondary level education requirements under UNE law. The equivalency was intended to be a temporary replacement for in-person education until colony worlds established stable local governments. However, as intersystem expansion continued, more and more humans completed their secondary education via EEC. When the common laws were established in 2526, the UPE designated the EEC as the standardized secondary education curriculum. The provision of a formalized education and offering equivalency exams became the responsibility of all local governments. During the Meser era, 2546 through 2792, the EEC was edited multiple times to indoctrinate the populace into pro-Meser ideology. This is where it gets really interesting. Xenology and sociology modules were increasingly seeded with anti-alien, pro-human thought. The history module was especially edited. Key events in Ivor Messer's rise to power were presented as the plans of aliens seeking to destabilize the government. Events directly perpetrated by the Messers or their agents that could not be blamed on aliens, such as military actions against human-led protests, were not taught at all. Following the fall of Linton Messer the 11th in 2792, all EEC modules were recalled by the new government and were completely revised. Secondary school was suspended until a new revision of the EEC was with a detailed history of the Messer era was released in 2794. Interesting. So the EEC right now and the remote education that you see now is basically 150, not quite 160 years old. The EEC is updated and revised once every 10 years. The question is, like, if things happen and events occur within those 10 years, 10 years is a pretty big gap. Do those things not get taught? I wonder, how they incorporate, current events into the EEC education. But yeah, interesting article. It'll be interesting to see how that sort of stuff plays into the game and how we interact with it as players. But it does we don't always have to have the lore being directly relevant to what we interact with in the game. A lot of it is things in order to fill out the universe and make it more believable. So let's go back to the other articles. All right, so we're going to start off with a ship. Short article on the Perseus by Robert Space Industries. The Perseus is a large gunship for people who have been confused about what the class of ship it is. Gunship, heavy gunship, manufactured by our Robert Space Industries. First developed in 2527 for the UPE, way back when. It was used in blockades and security patrols, most notably the incident at Red Ridge in 2529. It became a mainstay along the former Perry line after Xi'an-Human first contact in 2530. Oh, we got some 07s going back and forth. Do you guys know each other? Let's see. In 2863, it was retired from production. So when this article first came out, they said it was retired. And so we all postulated, okay, well, it must have been like retired from production and with active, units still out there, but most of them, relegated to mothballs. And then Sherry updated the article after Paul brought it up. I think it was Paul. In 2946, Admiral Ernst Bishop witnessed an aging Perseus participate in Operation Mandrake and requested that an updated Perseus-class fleet be put into production. That battle that Operation Mandrake and that Admiral Bishop witnessed, a Perseus basically single-handedly disabled, destroyed, I forget what the status was, 2 Vandal destroyers. So ships that significantly outclassed the Perseus in terms of tonnage and firepower. He's like Rick from Pawn Stars. Shampasta is like Rick from Pawn Stars. The Perseus is a really interesting ship, and I own one. I'm very excited about it too. I also really like the interior. I think it's really well laid out. I think it'll be a fun ship to crew and operate, but also a nice ship for my character, to live in, as part of a crew. That Perseus was damaged beyond repair. But the fact that a single Perseus was able to take on 2 Vandal destroyers, that significantly outmassed it and put them out of commission is quite a feat. It's a testament to the engineering of the day back before we had shields, because when the Perseus first came out, humanity did not have shields, and so ships had armor and had to be much more robust. After the creation of the Militia Mobilization Initiative, RSA expanded development to include a civilian version. The new Perseus, equipped with modernized weapons and a redesigned lower deck, was released in 2950. Yeah, a lot of people definitely like the Perseus. The small boy gunboat, and it's going to be a very, I think people don't give it as much credit in terms of versatility. For it's not going to be fast or anything like that, but being able to carry a small vehicle and a little bit of cargo, having room for your crew and their equipment, being able to dock with other ships, having pretty significant standoff weapons, it's going to be a mainstay in small fleets, and should be able to get around the verse, pretty dang well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing when this eventually goes into production. The Polaris is currently in production right now, and I'm hoping that the Polaris being in production is a good sign for this being the advent of the year of RSI, when it comes to putting more ships from RSI into production, like the Perseus, like the Galaxy, and who knows what else. So moving on to the star systems, and we'll look at these, we'll read the articles, and then we'll follow up each article with looking at the relevant topic in the Ark Starmap. The Perseus is definitely going to wreck subcap ships, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with different ammo types in terms of, armor penetrating, high explosive, different types of shells. So the Tyrol system, as I mentioned, it is my favorite system. So let's read about the Tyrol system, and then we'll pull it up in the star map. So the Tyrol system is an unclaimed planetary system that consists of a binary star system. So 2 stars, 4 terrestrial planets. Terrestrial being they are. It doesn't mean they're Earth-like in that they have a breathable atmosphere and they're livable, but in that they're the construction of the planet, the gravity and such, the having land mass is Earth-like. A Chthonian planet, a gas giant, and a protoplanet. Discovered by Damon Huerta in 2823, so only 130 years ago in star system time. It was initially met with excitement until it became clear that the F-type star had just entered its subgiant phase and was slowly losing its outer atmosphere to its companion star, a white dwarf. At some point within the next few hundred years, which is really, not a very long time in given the history of the star system universe, and especially considering they can't really narrow it down. At some point within the next few hundred years, the hydrogen accreted, which means pulled off of pulled off, via gravitational forces. So the hydrogen accreted by the smaller star will undergo fusion into helium and cause a nova. a cataclysmic explosion that has the potential to wipe out the entire system. Oof. Question is, will we ever see it in game? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But it's part of the lore for this system, and it makes the system very interesting. Tyrol has remained mostly unsettled beyond those interested in studying the building nova up close, those who wish to live outside the boundaries of the UEE, and those who have no other choice. So when you think about the people living in Tyrol, you're going to have a scientific research type population, people wishing to live outside the boundaries of the UEE. So people who live outside the law, because they're pirates and smugglers and who knows what else. But also people like you found in Nyx, people who don't want to be beholden to the UE government, who just want to be left alone, live their life how they see fit without government, empire interference. And those who have no other choice, again, pirates and such, people who can't, who really would have a difficult time living within a UE controlled and patrolled system. It looks cute. Yeah, very much Levski-esque, and you're going to get more of that vibe when we read some of these more articles. So let's pull up Tyrol. So search, and hopefully the mouse stuff will work. Normally what it does is it lets you let's reload it. I'll just pull it up in the back, because what I want to do and what I like to do is before I get into the system, you can right click on the system, and it will tell you a little bit about the system, namely how big it is. And a lot of people think that the star map doesn't get updated, but it has been getting continuous updates, on generally a quarterly basis ever since its inception. The problem is those updates are not published. And so there was a person on Spectrum that used to track those updates, had like a script that could pull the information, but they haven't done that in like 4 years now. There's Tyrol. Okay, so here's the Tyrol system. Let's see if I can right click it. Oh, it's not letting me. Okay, so I think the SC Tools wiki is up to date now, but I'm not sure. So let's go. So as the SC Tools wiki, and I can't confirm if this is right now, because it's not letting me right click on the system right now. But the SC Tools wiki has Tyrol at 59 AU. Chat, if you're able to get on the star map on your computer at home and right click on Tyrol and see if that's correct. I don't know why it's not letting me do it. This is the issue that I've been having, and I can't click on it to enter the system either. So I have to search for Tyrol and then do it that way. Let's see if it'll let me click on the planetary bodies either. See, normally it'll let you right click on the planetary bodies and it'll show the information. For some reason, the star map has been having lots of bugs and issues with working and loading correctly, more so than usual. So I'm hoping that somebody has notified CIG. If not, I need to do that. But so if the SC Tools wiki is correct, Tyrol is almost 60 AU, and for context, Stanton is 5 AU, and Pyro is 13, 1-3. So, Tyrol is like 4.5 times the size of Pyro, and 12 times the size of Stanton. So it's nuts. It's a big system. And you can see I've zoomed all the way out here. I think that this line right here is essentially what's called in the solar system, it's called the Kuiper Cliff, and it's basically the outer boundary of the system where the number of stellar bodies that are, I think it's like 100 meters or whatever. I forget what the size, but the number of stellar bodies, the size of asteroids, essentially, um, it drops off precipitously. It basically means that there's not much, there's almost nothing beyond that. So you can see that here's the layout for the system, and if we zoom in, we can see. Oh, that's what I was going to do. Sorry, I'm going to refresh one more time because I wanted to show you the jump points in relation to where Tyrol is, because that's important as well. Back. Okay. Go. All right, so here is the Tyrol system, and it's connected to the, I don't know how to say that. Is it Charon? That's the system that has the planet where there's a civil war going on. So there is a large jump point going to Charon or Charon. Yeah, just one large. And then it looks like a medium jump point going to Goss. Goss is a very, oh, looks like my camera just took a crap. Why does it do that every now and then? Close that, and then we'll reopen the camera software. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Really, camera? Why are you having issues? Apologize, guys. Okay, so it just doesn't like the virtual camera. All right, so I guess you guys get to see what my hotel room looks like. Welcome to my humble abode. So yeah, we're just making do with technology and the limitations thereof because of my laptop and being in being in a hotel. So yeah, we've got a large jump point going to the Karen, I don't know, system. A median jump point going to Goss. Goss is that has a system. I think it's like that vacation system. There's a very tropical planet there. I'm trying to remember. I'm not too familiar with that one off the top of my head. And then a single small jump point to Helios. And Helios, I don't remember much about. But as you can see, Tyrol is pretty far out here on, I guess you'd call it like the eastern edge of the UEE empire. If you consider that Sol, Earth is over here, and Terra is over here, Tyrol is way over here. So let's see. It's not letting me do it. So we'll just have to go in this way. Alrighty, so we're back in the Tyrol system. So let's open up the next article on Tyrol 1. So Tyrol 1 is the first planet from the two suns of the unclaimed Tyrol system. In close orbit around the barycenter of the binary stars, its proximity to them has led to a dangerously hot environment. Nevertheless, the surface is home to an ever shifting group of squatters who drift on and off the planet. They mostly inhabit former research stations or mining facilities that were built to withstand the extreme heat. When the systems that keep these locations safe, when the systems that keep these locations safe fail, people must flee to safer ground or risk death by hyperthermia. So it'll be interesting to see, um, that they're planning on building abandoned facilities on Tyrol 1. The question is, and they don't give any details, are they surface facilities? Are they underground facilities? Now, the fact that they say mining facilities leads me to believe that they'll be more akin to underground mining facilities. If you watched the ISC on the UGFs as well as the CitizenCon presentation, Nazareth and I did a big was it the spectrum pulse or scan anomaly on it. There was a lot of references to mining within the what they're working on the underground facilities. And so I think we're going to see a lot of underground facilities where, you have the underground facility is connected to mining tunnels, where you're mining for ore and bringing it back to the facility to be either brought back up to the surface and flown away, or processed, refined within that facility and then brought up to the surface and flown away. But the same could be said for research stations. You could have underground facilities that are research stations. They had concept art for rooms in underground facilities that had like server rooms. So if you remember what like from the 2019 CitizenCon, you could have rooms similar to that one, that facility, but underground. So we'll see. I think this is a place where we're going to see a couple of varieties of different types of abandoned facilities, and maybe some will be made using Rastar. Facilities that are on the surface. We don't know. We don't know what the systems are that keep people safe in those facilities. But it'll be really interesting to see what sort of facilities are there, how big they are, and what kind of people are squatting in them and living in them, and what kind of lives they lead, and what gameplay surrounds that. But the fact that you will be able to visit Tyrol 1 despite the extreme heat, is pretty interesting. Might be a good place to hide, in the Tyrol system, someplace where there are abandoned facilities and you're less likely to run into people. Close that one. So Lanisto is the next article. Lanisto, which is Tyrol 1A, so the first moon around Tyrol 1. Lanisto, Tyrol 1A, is the moon of Tyrol 1, the closest planet to the two stars of the unclaimed Tyrol system. There is evidence that many years in the past, Lanisto was very geologically active. Empty lava caverns provide temporary shelter to those who want to escape the heat of the nearby suns. The moon's largest settlement, Front Row, is largest settlement being a keyword, in that there are numerous settlements on the moon, either underground in these caverns or potentially on the surface, depending on how they're constructed. But the moon's largest system, Front Row, is partially situated within the remains of an ancient extinct volcano. So they're within the volcano, using it for shelter against the elements from those two nearby suns. But you can expect that this to be another type of underground facility where you have part of it that is above ground, but a lot of it is underground. In order to easily expand the facility into an area that you don't require as much infrastructure to protect you from the elements. So front row will be very interesting to visit. Yep, so we have the article on front row next. So before we do that, so here is the F-type star, here's the white dwarf star, and then here is Tyrol 1, and then Tyrol 1A, the moon, where Lanisto and front row, where those are located. So, front, let's see. Yeah, we're on the right one. Front row is a settlement on the surface of Lanisto, Tyrol 1A, the moon of Tyrol 1 in the unclaimed Tyrol system. In 2848, a series of interconnected research stations funded by multiple private institutes were constructed below the surface in old lava tunnels as a part of a project to observe the evolution of the white dwarf's potential nova. The study lost its funding in 2901 and the facility was abandoned. Shortly thereafter, it was claimed by smugglers and drifters. Aware that when the star eventually goes nova, they will be the first to perish, the settlement's few permanent residents have nicknamed it Front Row. So this is really interesting. I mentioned, when we did our spectrum pulsar scanner anomaly on underground facilities, these articles were not available on the Galactapedia, but these things were mentioned in the I think it was the system survey comlinks, and so we knew about them, and this is just the most up-to-date information. But I don't remember how detailed they went. But this is very clearly they're saying that they're going to use the underground facility, technology as part of the procedural locations tool to develop front row, and the other settlements, and facilities on Lanisto and Tyrol 1. So, but it's really interesting because, if you're unaware, and again, shameless plug, we did a big old spectrum pulse on the procedural locations tool back in November. But the procedural locations tool is what is used to make cave systems, space stations, now the underground facilities, and ostensibly they're going to be using it for asteroid facilities as well, and the derelict settlements. So the derelict settlements being the one like the derelict reclaimer, the on Microtech, and then the new one with the 600i and the MSR, right, on Daymar. Those are all made using the procedural locations tool because those things are meant to be made with essentially the click of a button. Basically you'll set some parameters within the procedural locations tool and say, this is where I want this type of location, this type of point of interest, and I want it to have these parameters in terms of size, what sort of function it is, whether, what sort of overlays to expect based off of that function, all these sorts of things. And then you click a button and then 80% of the work or more is done. It just, it builds it all out based off of these algorithms. Oh, as well as I would be willing to bet that the building interiors will be based off of the procedural locations tool as well. But it uses algorithms in order to build these locations in a logical fashion that makes sense, connecting the different rooms and modules together in a way that works right. And then they just have to go in there and polish it up, adjust lighting, add different things that they want, but this is how they're going to populate the universe and add, lots of locations along with the Rastar tool. So, but it's interesting because they say that it's a series of interconnected research stations funded by multiple institutes constructed below the surface in old lava tunnels. So this will use the procedural locations tool to not only build the underground research facilities, but the research facilities will have, they'll take the research facility overlay, and then they'll make a separate type that is research facility overlay abandoned, kind of like they showed us concept art of. And then they'll connect those research facilities and the cave parts that in the rooms where you can see the caves. It'll be it won't be like caves on Daymar, but it'll be caves that are that will look like cooled down lava. I forget what the lava flows are called, but what that sort of rock is called. In order to give it a different appearance, and that's how they'll add a ton of variety to all these different locations. But it'll be really interesting to go visit Front Row. I imagine there will be some very interesting mission givers there. Probably some places where you can buy and sell things. And particularly things that they would have a hard time getting there. It'll definitely have a very interesting vibe. Levski, but a lot more. I want to say nihilist, but there's a better word for it. Yeah, so definitely a interesting place to visit, Front Row on Linisto. No, don't do that. So let's close that one down, and then let's take a look at Tyrol 2. So Tyrol 2 is a terrestrial planet in the unclaimed Tyrol system and is the second world from its two suns. An iron planet, it is composed mainly of heavy metals and has only a scant silicate surface. Scientists believe that Tyrol 1 once had a thick crust and mantle that was stripped away due to an unknown event. I think they mean Tyrol 2. It must mean Tyrol 2. Wide dark plains on its surface suggest that it briefly had multiple lava oceans. So, being that it's an iron planet, and they talked about mining iron in the recent mining update, I think this is going to be one of those places where you'll be mining on the surface of a planet, but they still plan on, and this is not the most recent mining update, but in a previous one, they still plan on having subterranean mining, where you are, like using from the prospector commercial, drilling down, below the surface in order to mine minerals and metals. That's still planned. It's still intended. The rock mining that we have right now is not the only type of mining that we're going to have. So I think this is going to be one of those planets where mining iron that's below the surface would be a potentially worthwhile venture if you're willing to risk going into the Tyrol system. Especially given how large of a system it is, how there's probably pirate activity in there, and it could go supernova at any time. Tyrol 3, recent research subject. So a lot of research facilities abandoned and potentially, or not, in the Tyrol system. So Tyrol 3 is a coreless terrestrial planet in the unclaimed Tyrol system. Third from its suns, it is distant enough from them that it is overall cooler than Tyrol 1 and 2, although still very hot. Thanks to the absence of a metallic core at the center, it lacks an electromagnetic field and has failed to maintain a protective atmosphere. In 2911, Tyrol 3 was the subject of a University of Rhetor research project on the formation of coreless planets. So the question is, did they establish a research facility on the planet? Did they research the planet from orbit? We don't know. So maybe there'll be more to it later on. So looking at the star map, you can see as we zoom out here, here's Tyrol 1 with Linisto. Here's Tyrol 2, a little bit farther out. Here, and this is another good point to make, is Tyrol 3, which we just talked about, a little bit farther out than Tyrol 3. But then, so you can see here that we have the Helios jump point. I forget what size that is. Just outside the orbit of Tyrol 3, in between the orbit of Tyrol 3 and the asteroid belt, a little bit closer to Tyrol 3, but just a little ways above the ecliptic. And take these things for what they're worth as far as placement. But I promise you that Sherry has been making updates to these star systems for years, and adjusting the placement of jump points and planets and other stellar bodies, changing sizes of things, all sorts of stuff like that. And if we look at it, okay, here's the Helios jump point, just a little bit above the ecliptic, but then here is the Tyrol to Charon jump point, which is well above the ecliptic, even more so than the Gauss jump point. And it's hard to gauge distance, but you can see, based off the orbits of the planets and where they are, it's a lot farther going up like this. You remember the equation for triangles. It's a lot farther to these jump points going up from the planets in the asteroid belt than it would be to the where'd it go? The Helios jump point, which is on the ecliptic. Much shorter distance. We don't know what those distances are, but it's something to keep in mind, because there are a lot of jump points as they are placed on the star map that are above and below the ecliptic, which makes stellar distances going from one system to another a lot longer than you might think. It isn't just crossing a system from one place to another. And sometimes the jump points are closer in, sometimes they're farther out. It varies a lot. So Tyrol 3 right there. Looks like we're going to explore the Tyrol Belt Alpha next. So Tyrol Belt Alpha. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I want to open it up in a new tab. So Tyrol Belt Alpha is an asteroid belt in the unclaimed Tyrol system. Located between the third and fourth planets from its two suns, the belt was once situated within the temperate green band, which shifted outwards when the F-type star entered its subgiant phase. Some of the asteroids in the belt are sublimating and display cometary dust trails when they reach perihelion. So because they're no longer in the green zone, they're closer. The green band has moved farther out because it's gotten so much warmer. These asteroids are being exposed to more heat and more stellar radiation, and so they're starting to sublimate, which means they're losing some of their surface. And you have gas and debris coming off of them, and so as they're orbiting, they have little dust trails behind them, making them look much more like comets. So it'll be really interesting to go and look at this asteroid belt. What we don't know is if this is a good source of minables, whether it'll be worthwhile to mine in Tyrol. Now, it could potentially be fairly lucrative because the population in the system is low, and because of the size of the system, it can be kind of, the logistics of mining there can be a bit more difficult, but we don't know what sort of valuable minerals will be there or not. So it will all depend on what you're looking for and what your priorities as a miner are, whether you want to mine in a system like Tyrol, whether you want to do it in an asteroid belt or on one of the planets. Those are considerations you'll have to take into account. Tyrol 4, heavily haunted. Another haunted place. Quick. Okay. Tyrol 4 is a Chthonian planet in the unclaimed Tyrol system and is the fourth world from its two suns. Dense and rich in minerals, it is a popular destination for local miners, seeking to strike it rich. However, its high gravity creates a working environment that takes a harsh toll on people's bodies over time. Local folklore supposes that some of the mines are haunted by the ghosts of those who became too exhausted by the strain to return their ships. So this is being very specific in that the valuable minables and minerals aren't going to be on the surface, but underground. So in either cave systems, there might be abandoned mining facilities still on the planet, or some that are independent run and still operating. But because of the high gravity, this is going to be one of those planets where the gravity is going to affect your player character, and potentially affect your player character a lot, and you'll have to take that into account. Maybe this would be a good place to use a Titan suit, one of the industrial ones, to help augment your character and their abilities to mine, if that becomes a thing. Something to think about. But definitely, straight up telling you that there's gold in them there hills, but it's high gravity, and so it's gonna be gonna be some work to get it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of surface versus subsurface mining within facilities or just mining in caves, all of that. So an interesting planet. Tyrol 5, a newly watery world. Tyrol 5 is a terrestrial planet in the unclaimed Tyrol system. fifth position from its two suns, it was once partially covered in a thick layer of water ice that melted when the F-type star entered its subgiant phase and forced the green band outward. This created thousands of large lakes and revealed vast chasms, canyons, and caverns generated by millennia of glaciers. The presence of water on the planet has led to the creation of the largest settlement in the system, Haven. So you're going to have deep, canyons and as well as caverns. So cave systems as well. Created by the glaciers that have since melted, along with lots of surface water and lakes. So we'll read, but I think it's not habitable. There isn't like a breathable atmosphere there, but it sounds, because it's terrestrial, it should be relatively habitable within protected structures and such. But it'll be really interesting because this is the tech that they have built in order to make they've made the river tech, but then they've been expanding the river tech as well as the planetary generation tech in order to generate deeper and steeper canyons without having weird graphical distortion for the surfaces to allow for more dramatic changes in elevation. And so this is where a place where they'll be able to use that tech to great effect and potentially take it a step further, giving us Grand Canyon style, canyons, that are really deep. So let's actually, let's see, Tyrol system. I want to pull up the concept art because this is one of the systems that has some pretty interesting concept art. Is it in here? Ah, okay, here it is. So there's this image, which we have of a drone, and it looks like the drone is mining. But this is one of the older drone concepts from when they were first concepting the Orion. But then it looks like here's a station, and a facility out in an asteroid belt. So that's really interesting to look at. But when we did our Spectrum Pulse droning on about drones, we looked at the concept art for these drones versus the newer concept art that we have that they've built. But so this is meant to be Haven. Let's zoom in a little bit. And along with Front Row, which I think will be a really interesting location to visit, I'm hoping that we get some very eccentric characters living in Front Row, but maybe a little bit less so here on Haven. But this is the concept art for Haven, and yes, it's very old concept art, but this is what they're imagining for these really deep canyons with Haven, and other settlements built into the side of the canyon, and hanging out on the side. You're landing on pads or in hangars built into the canyon, and so I'm really excited to see how they end up building not only the planet of Tyrol, Tyrol 5, but also how they build the, it's kind of a town, not quite a city, sort of a settlement. But the location of Haven, however when you classify it, I think it's going to be a really interesting thing for them to bring into the game, and I can't wait to visit it. Especially with my alternate character, my Zero to Hero alt character is I want to play as a smuggler, and so I, as a smuggler, I definitely want to visit places like Haven, and smuggle things from Haven into UE systems. So let's zoom back out. There we go. Okay, so there's Tyrol 4, and then here's Tyrol 5 right on the inner edge of the green band. So even though the atmosphere on Tyrol 5 isn't breathable, the conditions on the surface probably won't be such where you're going to die from exposure, wearing your suit, where you're just going to cook, or freeze. So it's definitely going to be an interesting planet to visit. And not just because of Haven. So let's read more about Haven. Haven, home of Doomsday. Pardon me. Haven is a settlement on Tyrol 5 in the unclaimed Tyrol system, built into the side of a deep canyon to shelter from the heat of the suns. So it is going to be hot, but probably not super hot considering it is in the green band. Haven started, and I think it's supposed to have an atmosphere, the Tyrol 5. Haven started as a collection of tunnels that were used as temporary hideouts by outlaws with nowhere else to run. As more people desperate enough to disregard the looming risk of the Nova have made their way to the system, Haven has grown into an interconnected warren of caves, both natural and artificial. An underground river flows through the deepest part of Haven, providing a fresh supply of liquid water to its inhabitants. Can you imagine, going through these tunnels that, some of them natural, caves and tunnels, some of them natural, some of them excavated, which is part of the system they're working on for the underground facilities, as well as what they're doing for caves already. But then, walking out through a tunnel into a large, cavern, with a river flowing through it, with multiple, points of entry at different parts along the river, and what sort of, underground life might be available there, flora and fauna, uh, and the different. You could have caverns connected by these tunnels where settlements built using Rastar or other modules as part of the procedural location system, essentially houses and stuff made in these caverns or built into little offshoot rooms. It's just going to be a really great location to explore. All these places. If you like Levski and if you like Grimhex, this is going to take those sort of things to the next level. And that's why I'm really interested in Haven and Front Row and the Tyrol system in general. Tyrol 6. Here it rains helium. Tyrol 6 is a gas giant in the unclaimed Tyrol system. The sixth world from its two suns, it remains largely unaffected when the it remained largely unaffected when the F-type star entered its subgiant phase. Rain inside the atmosphere of Tyrol 6 is composed of helium. During precipitation, the helium droplets fall through the liquid hydrogen of the planet's interior. Interesting. Where they dissolve in the heat. Helium clouds contribute to the atmosphere's pale color. Um, I don't remember for certain, but I do believe we are going to be able to use helium as a source of fuel for our ships and our ships' thrusters. But at the same time, I think that's using a refinery like is supposed to be on the Starfarer. Um, so it's a notable location given that Tyrol 6 is out here in the green band, not all that far in orbit away from Tyrol 5 where Haven is, potentially not terribly far from the jump points. But given that, if this is, the outer edge of the system and it's, 59 AU across, it's still not a small distance to Tyrol 6 from other locations in the inner system, but it's certainly a lot closer than Tyrol 7 way out here. So that may be the best source of fuel in the system if you decide to venture to Tyrol. Tyrol 7. Some think it will survive the upcoming Nova. Tyrol 7 is a protoplanet in the unclaimed Tyrol system, and is the outermost planet in the system. In 2943, a widely reported academic article claimed that Tyrol 7 was far enough away or was far enough from its two suns that it had a high chance of remaining out of danger in the event of a nova. Since then, multiple institutes of higher learning and private research organizations have expressed interest in constructing a permanent base on the planet from which to observe the nova's progress. This is one of those things where this is speculation, but I fully expect that as time goes on in Star Citizen, that this research initiative will come to fruition, and players will have the opportunity to bring resources to this construction project to build this permanent base on Tyrol 7, and eventually, it will be a permanent base that you can visit, and they'll update the article. I think that we are going to see those sorts of changes in Star Citizen. It isn't going to be like in WoW where the verse is static. We are going to see changes over time, and I think this is going to be one of those instances that they're writing about now, where you'll be able to participate in the construction, of such a facility, but also visiting it later, and at that facility later, being potentially engaging in science gameplay. Wonder if there are any planets that mimic the proto molecule from the Expanse. Oh gosh, uh, that scared the crap out of me from a sci-fi perspective. So I don't know, but the idea of something like that is quite chilling. I'm a bad sci-fi nerd. I have not read the Expanse books. Eventually, I'll get to it, but it's just a matter of balancing time between keeping up on Star Citizen's product or development, and having a career and a half, and being a husband and a dad. Um, but it's been kind of nice being at this course in that I have had more downtime for stuff like this, as well as going to the gym and going for long runs, which is where I listen to audiobooks. So it's been a little bit of a paid vacation almost. um, but I do miss my family dearly. Blizzrad, whatever you maybe you said, it said even is this, it all got put into asterisks. So I don't know if you were. Yeesh. Yeah. So that is it for the Tyrol system. Again, a really interesting system. I hope I conveyed well to you guys why I'm so interested in the Tyrol system and visiting those locations. I think a lot of you, like me, um, uh, love and miss Levski, and are looking forward to the arrival of Nyx in the Star Citizen universe, and being able to visit Levski again, getting more characters and mission givers there. But I'm also looking forward to more locations that are like Levski, where you have interesting people, locations that are more along the lines of what you would find in Firefly and Serenity, and less along the lines of what you would visit in populated Neapolitan planets like in Star Trek. Blizzard says, Raffle, I should have known that would happen. I was commenting negatively on you not reading the Expanse books. I know, I'm a terrible person. The I don't know how I wasn't made aware of the Expanse books prior to the show releasing. And so I've watched the show. I just haven't read the Expanse books. That being said, you would shudder at the size of my Audible library, because I'm a big audiobook fan. And so I have read lots of other books. I just haven't gotten around to reading the Expanse books because I've watched the show. So it hasn't been as high on my list of priorities versus new books and new IPs in different series that I follow or find. So let's. Holy crap! It let me do it. Oh, but it still won't let me right click on it. Okay. So we're going to zoom out here, because we have one more system to explore as part of this Galactapedia update, the Genesis system. But first, we've got articles on Neil Sokolovich, VFG Industrial. So this is interesting. I think this is even more interesting. And I'll talk about why when we get here in a second. The VFG Industrial. So Neil Sokolovich. Neil Sokolovich, 2373 through 2474, lived to be 101, was a general in the United Nations of Earth Army. Holy moly, we're actually getting a little bit of lore regarding the army for the, well, this is UNE, not UEE, and a key figure in the negotiation of the Banu-Human Interstellar Peace and Trade Accord, the first interspecies treaty in human history. Born on Angeli, Croshaw II, he joined the UNE Army in 2390. He was promoted to the rank of general in 2415, so after 25 years, after completing 2 deployments to the Banshee system, where he gained a reputation for his ability to settle conflicts with outlaws without opening fire. Interesting. In 2430, General Sokolovich was assigned a command post in the newly discovered Davian system. Historians credit his thoughtful leadership during Banu-Human first contact in 2438 for ensuring that humanity's initial encounter with another civilization was a peaceful one. Upon his retirement in 2441, he purchased a plot of land on his home planet and entered the winemaking business. So essentially, this is Jean-Luc Picard. He passed away in 2474. I wonder if this will be a location on Angeli that we can go visit, and you get a little notification and an achievement for, visited this location, within the game. But a pretty interesting history. Again, not really gameplay related, or anything like that, but interesting filler, as far as the backstory, of Star Citizen and the universe that we're going to be living in. So, VFG Industrial. And those of you who are in the Discord, if you're not in my Discord, do me a favor, Blizzrat, since you're here, can you drop a link to the Discord in chat? I always forget to do that. My Discord link is on my Twitch channel page. There's a little link in the bio. You can click on that. It's a never expiring link. It's just discord.gg / I think it's tree0311 is all that it is. But if you are not a part of the Discord, I highly encourage you to join the Discord, be a part of the conversation. We have a bunch of interesting channels. We talk about Star Citizen, space games. I'm a big fan of co-op games, so we talk a lot about co-op games. I really need to add some of the books that I have on Audible to the little book club. And then we have separate channels specifically for talking about the Pathfinders podcast and the Armchair Admirals and Generals podcast, the different episodes, as well as where you can pose questions to those of us who are the hosts on those podcasts, as well as provide feedback. So it's a great place to do it if you're looking to engage more beyond hanging out with us in chat or watching the videos on YouTube and commenting later. So come be a part of the community. It's a lot of fun. You'll get to know Blizzrad and a bunch of other people in chat intimately, and especially Blizzrad's myriad quirks. But if you have been in the Discord and you've seen some of the conversations, you'll see why I'm excited about this post, the Galactapedia article for VFG Industrial. So, VFG Industrial is a spacecraft hangar manufacturer that produces personal hangars designed for extreme environments. A wholly owned subsidiary of ArkCore, VFG adapts asteroid mining techniques to hangar construction, allowing them to bury well-equipped hangars deep inside large asteroids and other planetoids. The VFG Industrial team maintains a unit of zero-gravity workers and invests heavily in advanced excavation equipment. So, if you, Blizzard, you are a terrible person, but we love you anyway, and glad to have you as part of the community. For those of you who don't know, Blizzard is one of my mods on Twitch and in the Discord. Despite his total lack of regard for safety and humanity, he's a decent person despite what he might say, and the Discord and the chat are in good hands with having him around. So, but if you're a old-timey, back in my day when Star Citizen ran at 5 FPS, you may remember the asteroid from the hangar module. May remember the asteroid hangars. Well, the asteroid hangars were made by VFG Industrial. That's the company that makes them. And You also probably may or may not be aware that I'm a huge fan. Oh, sweet, Moobot doing its thing for Stack Up. So you may not be aware that I'm a huge fan of the procedural locations tool and what they're being able to do with that tool. And it's speculation, but it's speculation founded in reality of the development of the game. But the right now, everybody's all excited about underground facilities and building interiors. And unless you obsess over the progress tracker, hey, it's Nick. Welcome. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Appreciate you joining me this evening. How are you doing? But so unless you obsess over the progress tracker, you may not be aware that not far behind the underground facilities and building interiors that are being developed are asteroid facilities. It's on the progress tracker. They've had artists from I think it's one of the sandbox teams. It's like EU Sandbox 1 or 2, I forget which one, have been working. There's like 3 or 4 artists now that have been working on the asteroid facilities for 9 months. And to me, this means that they're doing what they, if you remember from CitizenCon last year, they showed us off the concept art and a little bit of early white box of the underground facilities. Well, they showed us that off at about the 9-month mark of production, with about the same amount of people, maybe a little bit more, on the sprint. So you can go back and look at this stuff on the progress tracker. It's still available, and you can see where they were when. So what you can see where they were and how much effort had been put into developing the underground facilities when we first saw them back in October. Well, we're coming up on about that point when it comes to production with asteroid facilities. I think they have less people working on it, but I would not be surprised if in the next quarter or two we got a big reveal, ISC type thing, showcasing the work on asteroid facilities and showing us, hey, this is what we're working on. This is, same sort of thing we already saw for underground facilities, but asteroid facilities. And if you liked the asteroid hangar from the original hangar module, I think you're very much going to like the asteroid facilities. We don't know what they look like, but my what's the word? Being reminiscent and my nostalgia for the asteroid hangar is through the roof, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing asteroid facilities. And everybody's like, "Oh, we already have Grimhex," and well, Grimhex was built a long time ago, and Grimhex was meant to be like a landing zone, and it's not procedurally generated. It was very much more bespoke. Whereas these asteroid facilities will be built like the underground facilities, in that they'll use the procedural locations tool to build small ones, medium ones, large ones, and there will be aspects on the surface of the asteroid. There will be stuff buried deep into the asteroid, just like how underground facilities are buried under the surface of planets. And so here they are, adding the article for VFG Industrial, which is one of the manufacturers, the manufacturer that makes the hangars in extreme environments, deep inside asteroids. They're adding this article, and we're 9 months into the art production of asteroid facilities. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that this is not coincidence at all, and that they're going to talk about this when they reveal the asteroid facilities. And if I had my druthers, we would see it in ISC this next quarter after they return from their 3-week hiatus. So there's my little bit of tinfoil hat, but it's tinfoil hat with some evidence. But I think this has the potential to be extremely interesting locations to visit, and not only that, I really need to do a Skinner anomaly on this. But there have been multiple mentions of asteroid facilities in different Galactapedia articles for other locations. If you go look at the 2 asteroid belts in the Nix system. Those are the most prominent ones, where they specifically mention asteroid facilities. Kind of like Levski, which is on a planetoid-ish thing. But there are other asteroid belts and asteroid fields that have specific mentions of asteroid facilities. I wouldn't be surprised if we got asteroid facilities that are for asteroid mining, just like we have mining, underground facilities for mining on planets, for larger facilities. And I would be surprised if we didn't see them operating, and not abandoned in Stanton, in the Aaron Halo. So keep an eye on that stuff. Actually, you know what? Here, before we continue on, we're almost done, and so we'll just we'll pull up the progress tracker and the deliverable, so just so you can see what I'm talking about, and you're like, nah, that guy's crazy. He's just making stuff up. So, asteroid facilities being worked on by EU Sandbox 1. And they just, and the other interesting thing, so I've been tracking this sprint using Shiny Tracker, and you can go back and you can see that there are not gaps in this work. These artists have been working on asteroid facilities essentially the entire time. It's not sprints off and on the entire time. So you're open a new tab. So here we are. The sprint is scheduled out to the end of June. It's EU Sandbox 1. I don't remember if they're an upstream or a downstream team, so I don't know if that's just as far as their schedule goes. I want to say they're upstream, though, and they get their schedule out a year in advance. So they're pretty far along in this work, because they started this sprint work on this deliverable at the end of June last year. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year and it's 3 artists working on these for a year. So adding new asteroid facilities to the persistent universe, handcrafted traversable areas offering different gameplay opportunities both in the interior and exterior of asteroids. So very interesting, very fun, adding a lot more flavor to the verse, more points of interest, making asteroid belts and fields much more interesting. So let's look at our last few articles. We've got the Genesis system to wrap us up this evening. Let's see. So Genesis system. The Genesis system is a developing planetary system that consists of a G-type main sequence star, a mesoplanet, a terrestrial planet, an ice giant, and an asteroid belt. So developing means that it's protected by the Fair Chance Act, and there are sentient or potentially sentient species that are developing on a planet or planets in that system that need protecting. So a little tidbit on this, you can go into Fair Chance Act systems and do things in those systems, but you have to have, essentially you have to have permission from the UEE, reputation system, everyone. And you can even, you can explore Fair Chance Act protected planets with developing species on them, but you have to use research drones. And there's an article for research drones in the Galactapedia recently added. But you have to, again, have permission from the UEE to use those drones. Science gameplay, anyone? So, science and research. Discovered in 2812, it was immediately evident that the second planet from the sun was lush with vegetation. Many terraforming companies put in early bids with the UEE government, but were ultimately barred from developing the system when the Fair Chance Act was invoked after multiple intelligent species were detected on Genesis 2's surface. Multiple species. The system's other 2 planets are situated on either side of the green band and are poor candidates for terraformation. So this is going to be a very interesting system. Genesis 1. Before we pull that up, let's find Genesis. There it is. Okay, so Genesis is not far from Tyrol. Basically, 2 jumps via a large jump point from Tyrol. So Genesis is connected by a large jump point to Charon, I'm not sure how to say that. I always forget. That system that has the planet with the Civil War going on. It also Genesis also has a large jump point to Corel. I'm brain farting on Corel. I know it's a well populated system, and I forget the name of the planet, but it's basically like a massive trade hub because it borders the Banu down here, right? Yeah, Banu down here, Xi'an up there. I think, yeah, borders Banu space. And then there's also, let's see, the Tyrannus system is that. Oh dang, there we go. And yeah, so that's a medium jump point going from Tyrannus to Genesis. And yeah, Banu. Okay, so let's see if it'll let me go into the Genesis system. Nope, it's gonna have to make me search for it. The star map is finally starting to show its age, folks. And real quick, I'm going to pull up Genesis on my phone. And we'll see. I can't make any guarantees about the accuracy of the size on SC Tools. I think they got all their articles updated, but I'm not sure. So on SC Tools, it has Genesis at 25 AU, 25. So 5 times the size of Stanton and nearly twice as large as Pyro. And Nyx is 11 AU now, last I checked. So also considerably larger than Nyx. So it's a good size system. And you can see that here is the green band in here. Here's the out. I don't know if this is the outer edge of the system or out here is the outer edge. Or sorry, it's hard to know where the outer edge of the system is. The other thing that's interesting is some systems have more of these like little dots in them than others. So I don't know if that's going to factor in to density of stellar bodies. But yeah, so there's the Genesis star. We got the Tyrannus jump point below the ecliptic right there. The Charon jump point just below the ecliptic over here. And then the Corel jump point is right next to Genesis 2, which is that protected planet. And Corel would be the more populated UE system that you might be coming from, more likely. So, Genesis 1. Genesis 1 is a mesoplanet in the developing Genesis system. Because it lacks a protective atmosphere, its surface is pockmarked with thousands of craters caused by meteorite bombardment, and its core is partially exposed. Whoa, core is partially exposed. In 2933, the observation station Lalahan, located in the planet's polar region, was destroyed in a meteor strike. There were no casualties thanks to an early detection and evacuation, but the institute funding the station elected not to rebuild after it was unable to secure additional grant money from the UAE. Makes you wonder if there are additional observation stations that have been abandoned that are on the planet, or if there's wreckage of the station that maybe could be salvaged, or you could set up a temporary base at. If they were doing observation on the planet, for whatever reason, there might be science gameplay involved where, okay, we don't have this facility anymore. We need you to go there and do this research for us in lieu of that facility being there. So those are some potentials for Genesis 1. And you can see Genesis 1 is right in here, well inside the green band. Or, well, closer to the planet, or the sun, with the green band being out here. Genesis 2, protected under the Fair Chance Act. Genesis 2 is a terrestrial planet in the developing Genesis system, situated in the temperate green band around its star. It has oceans of liquid water interspersed with thickly forested continents. It was declared a protected planet under the Fair Chance Act the same year it was discovered in 2812 due to the presence of multiple sentient species on its surface and in its seas. In 2942, cephalopod-like ocean-dwelling creatures were observed exploring one of the landmasses. This sparked a violent confrontation with the dominant land-based species. As the conflict continues, scientists and academics have begun to question the morality of non-interference in the war as required by the Fair Chance Act. So this is really, really interesting. The fact that there are multiple sentient species on the planet, and one of them is a land-dwelling species, and the other one is a sea-dwelling species that has the ability to go up on land and explore the surface. We don't know what to what extent, but not only that, but these two sentient species came into contact with each other, and it sparked a conflict. They did not hit it off, and now there is an ongoing war by two developing species on this planet. Now, we also don't know to what extent these species have developed. We don't know if they're, basic tool users, if they're, at the Bronze Age level of development. We have we don't know anything about what level of development they're at. We only know that they have an ongoing conflict between these two species, and it's being observed by UEE scientists and researchers, and it sparked a lot of debate, among the, I guess it would be paleontologists and such. So, a really interesting piece of information, especially in the context of there will be UEE forces patrolling the area around the planet, protecting it, and trying to keep people from going down there. There will be an observation station where they'll be observing the planet, from orbit. But there are research drones that you can fly down to the planet. That's in the Galactapedia, with permission from the UEE in order to, observe these developing species, in order to take samples, for research and science purposes. That's research and science gameplay right there. And ostensibly, if you can do this legally, you can also do it illegally. So I can imagine that the highly motivated smuggler could sneak down to the planet, either via their ship or with a drone, in order to get samples or information, whatever they might want, a buyer might want, and smuggle it out to people who want what is on the planet, whether it's resources, whether it's samples of the wildlife or the flora and fauna. There's a lot of potential, given what we know about the developing planets and the potential for drone gameplay. But potential on both sides of the law. So Genesis 2 is a very interesting planet, especially given that it has large oceans and large, heavily forested continents. So if we're ever, if you're ever able to visit, it should be really interesting to explore. Just don't get caught, unless you have permission. Genesis Belt Alpha. So here's Genesis 2. They don't have the station on the star map, but I know at least one of the other protected Fair Chance planets has the space station on the star map. They always have an observation station from which security forces and researchers are based out of, and then there will be UE forces patrolling the system and patrolling the area immediately around the planet. So Genesis Belt Alpha, here's the asteroid belt at the outer edge of the green band. So Genesis Belt Alpha is an asteroid belt in the developing Genesis system, located between the second and third planets from its sun. Its proximity to the Fair Chance Act protected world Genesis 2 has made it off limits from potential industrial development. However, some of the larger asteroids have deposits of ice that are mined under strict government supervision as water supplies for many of the observation stations. So multiple stations that orbit Genesis 2. So there will be multiple stations orbiting Genesis 2 that will require supply, and apparently they require ice mined from the asteroids in the belt for water supplies. Now, so industrial level mining of Genesis Belt Alpha is not permitted by the UEE and the Fair Chance Act, but that doesn't mean that non-industrial levels of mining, could occur. If there's no industrial levels of mining, that means that the asteroid belt has not been, picked clean. There should be a lot of mineable material, minerals and metals in the belt for the taking. The challenge is in not getting caught. Or you could just mine there under contract for the water deposits, and just get a steady income while also earning reputation with the UEE and whatever research organizations need that water ice. So definitely gameplay to be had there, both on both sides of that legal coin. Blizzard says, let me grab a distinctly non-industrial Orion for this. When they say industrial development, I think they mean lots of big mining stations, Shubin coming in and with their giant mining facilities and mining going through on an industrial scale. You could go in there with your Orion, you just run a much higher chance of getting caught, due to putting off a much larger signature. But it all depends on where in the belt you're mining and how well you're doing, gathering intelligence on the UE forces there that are patrolling in order to stay one step ahead. It could be worthwhile, just a bit more challenging, and maybe that challenge is what you're looking for. It could be fun. It could be fun to try and do the cat and mouse gameplay while mining and making it profitable, worth your time. So Genesis 3, and this is our last article. Genesis 3 is an ice giant in the developing Genesis system. Located beyond the frost line, it has an upper atmosphere of hydrogen and helium and a mantle composed of volatile chemical compounds such as ammonia, methane, and water in a supercritical fluid state. I don't know what that means. Ranging in color from pale blue to almost white, it starkly stands out against the surrounding blackness of space. So it's an ice giant. But with an upper atmosphere of hydrogen and helium. So it would be, Genesis 3, the ice giant in the Genesis system, is where, if you were passing through, where you could go to refuel. You could bring your Starfarer to Genesis 3 and collect fuel for providing power to power plants on the space stations, or to provide fuel for the UE Navy ships on patrol in the system, or because it's out far enough away from Genesis 2, they probably don't have any prohibition against you collecting gases for fuel there and taking them outside of the system, depending on where you want to go. So that's another aspect of gameplay within the Genesis system. So yeah, Genesis, another really interesting system. To me, not as interesting as Tyrol, but still pretty cool, especially given what we know about Genesis 2 and the warring, developing sentient species, one on land and one from the sea. And the one from the sea looks like a cephalopod-like, so I think that means like squid, Cthulhu. But yeah, very interesting stuff. I need to get ready for tomorrow. I've got to pack my lunch and get everything, finish my laundry to get ready for class tomorrow. So I'm going to call it a night. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been hanging out with me in chat. We've still got 16 people watching, which is pretty good for these episodes, especially on is it Monday? Yeah, it's Monday night. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for hanging out in chat and participating and being a part of the community. Lastly, I got to plug stackup.org. If you're not aware, from watching the previous streams or the YouTube videos, all of my content goes to charity. I have a career. I'm a civilian flight paramedic, and I'm also an Army National Guard flight paramedic. So I have a career and a half, and my wife and I, we do pretty well. So I don't all the funds from content creation go directly to stackup.org. So you can donate directly. So charity. Oops. Put the chat command in. So you can donate directly via that link. You can also use the Twitch charity thing. I think there's like a button somewhere on the main page. I'm on the app on my tablet, so I don't remember where it is. To donate, it all goes to the same fund. It all it shows that our community right here is we're the ones contributing. It just the way it gets reported between the goal at the bottom of the screen and the goal at the top of chat is on a different cycle, so they don't represent it. It all goes in the same pool under the same donor drive, but it isn't counted at the same time. But yeah, so you could donate directly via that link or via the Twitch charity tab thing. If you want to subscribe to my channel, if you like what myself and my partners in the Pathfinders podcast, Nazarus and Atira Kell and Nightcob and Armchair Generals, if you like what we do and you want to support us and you don't want to watch ads, you can subscribe to the channel. And when I get the payouts from Twitch, I donate those along with a portion of my own funds to Stack Up when I get those payouts. So the last two payouts have been like 60 something bucks, and I've matched it up to $100 with my own money, and we've donated that money to stackup.org. I should be getting another payout here in a few weeks as well. So we'll donate that. And I make posts with the screenshots of the receipts showing that I have sent that money over. I put those in my Discord and out on Twitter, just so you know that your patronage is going towards a good cause, because stackup.org, as it says in the chat, is a not-for-profit that helps veterans and service members promote positive mental health and suicide prevention through the power of gaming. So connecting veterans and service members with video games and video game communities like this one in order to help combat PTSD and prevent suicide. So it's me as a veteran and a active service member in the Army National Guard. I'm on active duty orders right now, and someone who's been combating and dealing with my own PTSD for 20 years now, since I first joined the Marines and deployed long ago. It's a worthwhile cause and something I really believe in, and I hope you'll help me in supporting them. And just by being here, it supports stackup.org, and it supports me because we're a community, and I think of all of you guys as friends. So that's all I have for this evening. I hope you found this informative and enjoyable. Keep track of the progress tracker and the asteroid facilities, VFG Industrial. Oh, fingers crossed for something with ISC in this next quarter. And yeah. Oh, no Pathfinders podcast this week. This is our off week with the new schedule that we're doing. We're doing 3 Pathfinders a month and 1 Armchair Admirals and Generals a month if we can make it work. If you saw the This Week in Star Citizen post on Wednesday, we're getting the roadmap roundup, which will be the first one of the new quarter. So we should get the first round of updates for, I think it'll be Q4 for the upstream teams, and Q2 for the downstream teams. So we'll see what the downstream teams are working on for the next quarter, April, May, June. And then we're also getting the monthly reports. So next Monday, Nazarus and I are going to be, we're planning for next Monday. It might be Sunday. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. But we're going to do the roadmap roundup with Shiny Tracker reports. And then we're also going to do a scanner anomaly. And I think we're going to do the one that I've been working on Star Citizen's future funding model. So a little bit of nerdy number stuff, but it's going to be interesting, going to be informative. So yeah, crossing our fingers for the a good roadmap roundup. coming up here. And then we're hoping to get Shiny Hobo onto the Pathfinders podcast at the end of the month after. So not this roadmap roundup on Wednesday, but the 1-2 weeks after that, when we do the next podcast after that roadmap roundup, we'll do the roadmap roundup and a spectrum pulse on Shiny Tracker, and with, you'll hear it from the horse's mouth is the plan with Shiny Hobo, and then the week after next Monday is when we'll do the monthly reports. So stay tuned. I'm going to put all these up in my Discord as events, so you'll know well in advance when we're going to be covering those things. But the schedule is flexible, so just stay tuned for updates. And then, like I said, at the end of the last Armchair Admirals and Generals episode last Saturday, we are working on our plan for the next episode, tentatively planned for the first weekend of May, with a guest, either Kale Katarn, who's in the Discord and is a frequent viewer and member of the chat, or Badgers from the Info Runners, who you've probably seen. He was hanging out with us the other night. It will depend on who's available, but we're going to be talking about the weapon balancing initiative, and we'll start off talking about guns, and then we'll talk about ordnance, so missiles and torpedoes and bombs even. But yeah, so that's all I have for this evening. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate all you guys. 07s all around. Have a great week, and come hang out in the Discord, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.